clubs later. Look how much Chelsea are now spending. Arsenal spending £100 million on players. Liverpool trying to spend £100 million on players. United have matched your spending in the last decade. So it's a nonsense that you just have exponentially more money than everybody else. That's just a fallacy that's been created by rivals and an excuse. You guys are doing bits, mate, and you were my favourites to win the league. By the end of this window, I don't see anything changing personally.
Listen, it's money well spent. People talk about, oh, you spent loads of money, but we spent it well. Look at the money, divide the money by the trophies, and then you get the true picture of what's happening. You know, Man United spent more than us. They got a Carabao Cup and a bucket out of the Glazers. That's it. You know what I mean? So it proves that money doesn't work. You can throw money at anything you want. Chelsea are throwing money at it now. So they expected to win the league now. They've spent the money. They've got, you know, they've done 900 million in 2 windows. So should they win the league? Should they win the FA Cup? Should they win the Carabao? If they don't, because if City did that, like what Pep said, if City went out and spent 900 million in 2 years and didn't win anything, everyone would be going mad. But listen, we're used to it. It is what it is. You know, we know we're run right. We know we can buy players like Akanji for 14 million, Alves for 14 million. Nobody says a word. As soon as we buy Jack Grealish for 100 million, everyone in the world's on our case. But listen, this season, there's other clubs that start in the market. There's people paying 113, 114 million for defensive midfielders. Yeah. So are they expected to win the league now because they're spending it? So here's what it is. We're used to it. I know that my clubs run right. I know City will run well. I know that we're in good hands and we're only going to get better. The academy now is pumping out kids like left, right and centre. We're getting money like anything. We've got clubs all over the world. The infrastructure is massive and it's only getting bigger and bigger. So Manchester City, a lot of people need to focus on their own teams instead of thinking, oh, it's easy to say Man City cheated. It's not, because it's easy to say Man City are better than you because we're run better than you. So if people put that energy in their own clubs and started getting on their own owners and they're wondering why their own clubs ain't doing this, then they might win something.
The thing is, even if you've cheated, you haven't cheated in terms of paying refs to give you games or paying other clubs to lose matches.
Yeah, according to the internet, according to the internet, that's it.
If you have inflated your income to be similar to that of the
no, the inflated income charge was proven not guilty.
I'm just saying, there's just
in the cash charges, the Etihad sponsorship, Etisalat sponsorship, all that was deemed as fair value. Simple. Read it. It's there in black and white.
No, I understand. So what I'm saying is, I'm putting out what is the consensus out there. If you have inflated your income or paid certain elements of wages and salaries and bonuses from outside the club, right? Let's just say you have done those things so that you can compete financially with the Man Uniteds and the Arsenals and the Chelseas, Liverpools. Let's say you've done that. That still doesn't negate how well you're run from a day-to-day perspective. If you get where I'm coming from, that doesn't mean the club shouldn't look at City and go, all right, they might have cooked the books so they could afford to spend what we spent. But in terms of how they operated and the standards internally, that's still something that you can mirror and copy and implement yourselves. So I understand the frustration that rivals may have, but at the same time, there's still a lot you can learn from how the operation is going on.
Would you agree that the financial fair play came in, right? We all know why it came in, to protect the elite clubs. That's it. To protect Man United, to protect Real Madrid, to protect Bayern Munich, to protect all them clubs from getting these other upstart clubs like RB Leipzig, City, Chelsea and all that coming in and getting on their level. But instead of helping them, it's hindered them because now the shackles are on everybody. So Man United, Chelsea and all them, you know, especially Man United, Barcelona, Real Madrid. Look at the state of Real Madrid. Look at the state of Barcelona. Look at the state of United. Has it helped them for FFP? No, it's hindered them. You've gone backwards since then. So what City did is, when they got the money, they brought in FFP. So Manchester City had to spend quickly because the rules changed. So we had to spend it quickly, and we did. And then now, yeah, these charges, we can't wait for it. Bring them on, bring the charges out. Let's see what they've got. You know what I mean? The cash situation, which people say, oh, it was time barred. It was time barred because the solicitors told Manchester City to don't you don't have to provide evidence to leaked emails. You know, if your solicitor said to you, Terry, and you're on a murder charge, don't say anything. in that interview. Are you going to go in there and say anything? No. You listen to your solicitor. So Man City did that, got away with the time bar, didn't have to prove nothing, and that was it. These ones are different, and we'll have our day in court. But Manchester United, fined. It don't matter if it's minor breach, this breach, because we don't know what it was really. They're fined for not complying with the rules. Chelsea's just been fined 10 million, right? Nobody blinked an eyelid. But Manchester City have not yet been charged with anything. But yet, because we're winning, because we're beating everybody, it's easy to say you cheated. You know what I mean? But
I do get that. I think FFP is one of those things for me where I feel I don't think it's necessarily 100% in there just to protect the elite clubs. I understand that point of view, though. I think we have to be mindful of. I like the idea of an owner of a club being able to pump into his club whatever he wants to. However, what I think they should have brought in instead is a fail-safe for that club. And what I mean by that is my brother's club had a billionaire take them over, Leyton Orient. And he promised when he first bought it off the Earns, and everyone knows who the Earns are. They do Matchroom Boxing. They're the guys that promote AJ. Bought it from them. He said, we're going to make you a Champions League club in the next 5 to 10 years. And I'm going to pump, basically said, I'm going to do what Roman did and pump all this money in. And they started off like that. He went and bought, they were League One. They went and bought some top-level championship players and were paying them 20 grand a week. Now, they're a tiny club with 4,000 or 5,000 fans. They cannot afford 4 or 5 grand a week in salary for players, let alone 20 grand. He started doing this. And a year in, he had all this big debt, like essentially debt, because all these wages on these big contracts. And he eventually said, actually, I'm pulling my money away now. I don't want to do it. And what he ended up doing is selling all those players, selling all the first team players, and only allowed his manager to pick youth players. And they end up getting relegated from League One to League Two and then out of football. And they nearly went bankrupt. And it was the owner of Baskin Robbins and Dunkin' Donuts, who via his family was a Leyton Orient fan. He bought them. So I think FFP should be reformed to where, say, your owners are willing to pump £1 billion in and they're going to increase your wage bill by 200, 300 million a year. They should have to provide money that's held by the league to protect you in case they decide to walk away so your club doesn't go bankrupt. I think that's what should be done as opposed to this loss element. Does that make sense? So that way, City could never go bankrupt if Sheikh Mansour says, actually, I'm not pumping any more money into it. You'd have a pot of money to be able to pay off those contracts that are currently outstanding. And if he walks away and doesn't invest anymore, you just eventually go back to being what you were before. I think they've got to bring in some kind of hybrid between what they have now and allowing owners to put more money in than they want to. That's how I think it should be done. They have to protect clubs from going out of business, because we've seen what happened to Portsmouth, what happened to Rangers. And I do believe if we hadn't had FFP, look at the financial trouble clubs are in without it. With it, some of them would have gone out of business if there was no FFP kind of keeping them in a tight line. But I also believe it is restrictive of clubs that have very ambitious owners that want to grow the club to another level. So I do get where you're coming from, 100%. But we also have to be mindful that you've got an amazing billionaire owner. Abramovich was brilliant. Just speak to QPR fans about their billionaire owner, or Leyton Orient fans, or Portsmouth, or Rangers. There's been many that have been dog shit. So I think we have to be. Do you get where I'm coming from? There has to be an element of protection, I think, for clubs, but limiting what they can invest. I'm not too sure if I'm a fan of that person.
The simple way is you should not limit what you invest. You should limit how much debt you saddle on a club. Because how can Manchester United be £800 million in debt and be able to spend what they want? But Manchester City own zero debt and have to spend within FFP. So it's flawed. It's to protect you, not us. Because you look at Man City as a club that don't owe zero, you're not going to go bankrupt as a club if you owe zero. But if you owe £800 million, there's a chance there.
I agree with you more. The Glazers should never have been. The way the Glazers bought Man United is now against illegal. The rules. No one can ever do it again. The way they bought us, so everyone talks about your owners being bad and Roman being bad. The fact that the likes of the Glazers were ever allowed to buy Man United the way they did.
Look at the chat there. Look at the chat. Because Man United are a bigger club and they get bigger revenue. They don't get bigger revenue. Look, they don't get bigger revenue. And when they say, how can Man City get bigger revenue than Man United? Well, the fact is that we're winning trophies every single year. And the fact is, Manchester City now, if you want to spend more money, you have to increase your turnover. Watch the Newcastle documentary on Amazon. The Saudis bought Newcastle. They had a board meeting. It's there in black and white. Amanda Staveley said, we can't spend any of this money because we need to get the turnover up. Do you know how much Newcastle turnover? Yeah, you class Newcastle as a big club.
They probably turn over 200 or 300 million max.
They turn over 180 million. Do you know how much Brighton turn over?
About 120, 130.
178 million.
Okay,
So you're telling me there's 2 million difference between Newcastle, who everybody classes as a massive club and a sleeping giant, and Brighton. So, you know, when they say Man City can't turn over X, Y, Z because you haven't got the fans here and all that, it's bollocks. They said it on there. The global fan base, it's not all about that. You can sign a training ground pitch sponsorship deal for fucking 15 million, or you can sell 100,000 fucking shirts for 20 quid. The pitch deal's bigger. So Newcastle are now trying to get their turnover up. So they're trying to sell the rights to the training ground. They're trying to do sponsorship lounges. They said they're miles behind everyone corporate. Man City are miles ahead of everybody corporate. There's no more room at the Etihad. They've got corporate facilities at the training ground now. So you get a VIP car into the training ground. You have a 3-course meal in the training ground. And you come to the stadium. They've hired out the Gaucho, Vermilion Restaurant. All these places in Manchester are off-site corporate because City know the money's in the corporate. City turned over 618 million. There you go.
No, mate, you guys, and it is the reason that turnover is even more key now is because FFP is changing, and a lot of people are not aware of this. It's going away from profit and loss on your trading account. It's going to be a cap of how much of your turnover can be spent on salaries, bonuses, and transfer fees, and I think they're including agent fees in that, to around 70%. And the reason why that's a very interesting number is because most clubs spend around 70%. And I'm glad they're doing this because that's how clubs actually operate. Net spend doesn't exist at club level. They don't look at it as basic net spend. It's how much of our turnover. They have a cap, maybe 65%, 70% of their turnover. So if the turnover increases, they can spend more money. It's been that way for a long time. So look, it is an interesting one. Viewers, I've got some super chats here I want to go to. First one says, wow, imagine Leyton Orient in the Champions League. Terry, do you think Leyton Orient should have got the Olympic Stadium instead of West Ham? I think that West Ham getting the Olympic Stadium goes against the rules that the FA set in place because it was in too close a proximity to Leyton Orient's ground. It broke rules, but nobody cares because Leyton Orient are tiny. My brothers are their fans. Look, it is what it is. It's a great stadium. Orient should never have had it. They would never fill it because they're not a big enough club. At the same time, though, rules, according to my brothers anyway, I haven't read them myself. My brothers are not bitter. Rules were broken in terms of that, but money talks, doesn't it?
But do you know, like when Blackburn Rovers when Jack Walker decided he was going to bankroll Blackburn, he bankrolled Blackburn Rovers, they signed Shearer, Sutton, Batty, Sherwood, all the boys. They won the Premier League. To a Blackburn Rovers fan, that was the dream, yeah? That was the dream, right? Other clubs looked at it and thought, I wish that one day somebody come in and buy my club and maybe take me to the Premier League.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That happened to us, right? So I've lived it, yeah? That can never happen again because of the turnover. So if somebody comes in now and say, I want to buy Bournemouth and I want to take Bournemouth to the Premier League, it can never happen. Never.
No, you can't. Yeah, because at FFP, you just
exactly. Can't. So how is that fair? But in business, if you open a shop across the road from me selling tires, and I have a shop selling tires, and I've got one van, yeah, and you go and buy 5 vans. You do the shop up mint. You put all new shutters on it, big signs, put a load of adverts in the paper, and everyone around the area goes to you. I can't go to the Tyre Federation and say it's not fair that Terry's got more money than me and he's got a better shop, better tyres, and all the customers are going to him. But that's what's happening in football.
So I totally agree with that element of it, 100%. The only bit they need to put in place, because we've seen a lot of bad owners, is they have to have a foul safe, like a pot of cash, like a bond, if you will, that's put aside to protect the club in case that owner is a charlatan. You know, in case, for instance, an owner, and this has happened, where an owner's pumping money into a club, and then suddenly they're arrested in their own country for breaking rules. They're going to lose all their money. Imagine your club.
Faxing Shinawatra got arrested. We had no money.
No, exactly. But so again, but this is it. Imagine you didn't then get the shake and you went out of business. You'd be sitting there saying, hang on a minute, why in the Premier League or why are there no rules out there protecting us from bad owners? So I don't disagree with your point, but we need something to protect the clubs because there are a lot of bad owners out there.